Hello and welcome to another episode of Drug Diaries, the podcast where we explore the latest trends and innovations shaping the world of pharmaceuticals, healthcare, and biotechnology. I'm your host Kaushik Trivedi, and today we have an exciting discussion lined up, focusing on the intersection of digital technology and the pharmaceutical industry. Before we dive into our today's topic, let's take a quick trip to 2035. And by the way, this is all work of fiction and imagination. But imagine for a second a world where healthcare has completely transformed. Doctors aren't relying on traditional information models such as websites or emails or interactive visual aids or even apps to get the latest drug information. Instead, they're working alongside AI-powered assistants that predict the best treatment options, simulate patient outcomes in real time, and pull insights from millions of patient cases worldwide, all in a matter of seconds. In this future, pharmaceutical companies are no longer just suppliers of medication. They are strategic partners in improving patient outcomes, developing digital therapeutic platforms that are customized to each doctor's unique patient needs. And for healthcare professionals, it's not about browsing through complex clinical trial data anymore. AR/VR tools give them real-time feedback during procedures, and AI avatars step in to support whenever they ask for them. Patients benefit from this too. Wearable devices monitor their health in real time, adjusting their treatment plans automatically using predictive algorithms. Healthcare is no longer one size fits all. It's personalized to their genetics, lifestyle, and even their habits, creating a level of care that's as precise as it is proactive. It might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the crazy thing is, it's not that far off. This is the future we are heading toward. And there are visionary leaders like our guest today, Alyssa Fenoglio, who are helping bring us closer to that reality every single day. Her goal is to integrate cutting-edge technology, AI, data analytics, digital tools into every layer of healthcare. So HCPs, patients alike have access to better insights, better outcomes, and ultimately better care. Today we'll be talking about how Alyssa is making that happen. We'll dive into her journey from her experiences across industries like pharma, FMCG, and medical devices to how those experiences have shaped her approach to digital strategy in the industry. We'll look at the challenges she faces in leading digital transformation in a massive global life sciences company and get a take on how AI and data are setting the stage for a radically different future in healthcare. We'll also get personal, diving into her leadership style, the challenges of being a top woman leader in tech and biotech, and the skills that will define the next generation of digital leaders. Alyssa is not just keeping up with the change, she is leading it, reshaping an industry that's been built on tradition and driving into a future powered by digital innovation. So stick around, because we are about to explore a future where AI and data don't just assist healthcare, they redefine it. And we are really lucky to have Alyssa here to tell us how that future is being built today. So without further ado, let's welcome Alyssa Fenoglio to the show. Welcome to Drug Diaries, Alyssa.
Great, thanks for the invitation, Kaushik. And I'm very intrigued by your opening. I hope it's here sooner than 2035. And I think the most exciting thing for me is being able to wake up in the morning and delegate all of those mundane tasks to an AI agent. And that's going to be in the next few years. Let's hope we'll make it happen.
Yeah. Alyssa, tell us a little bit more about your background, although I've spilled the beans a little, but if you can walk us through your background and your career journey to becoming the global head of digital commercial at Teva.
Sure, absolutely. So I've definitely had an untraditional journey. While I am in healthcare now, I have worked across multiple industries, and for me, there's a couple things that have been driving that are consistent. One, at an early age, a passion for health and wellness. I was an athlete early on.
Wow.
I studied exercise physiology in university. I wanted to be a sports medicine doctor. Clearly, my path has taken a different turn, but that underlying passion for health and wellness has led me to the healthcare industry. And the other part is, I seek knowledge. I want to learn. I'm driven by learning and growth. Each of my moves across my career have been driven by that, wanting to learn more, wanting to broaden my skill set across industries, get different experiences so I can understand better the world and how I can have an impact. I'd categorize, three phases of my careers.
Right.
Firstly, in the beginning, I started out in pharmaceutical sales. I carried the bags. I understand what that day and the life of a sales rep is like. And I really love that combination of, working with doctors, working with pharmaceutical companies to bring to life medications for patients to drive impact. But I wanted to learn more. I went and got my MBA with the intent of pivoting into marketing and also into medical devices. And with that, it brought me to Medtronic, where I learned the marketing fundamentals. I was in the diabetes division, was launching cool new technologies like continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps, learned a lot about marketing, fell in love with marketing. And that brought me to the decision, I guess, to start the second part of my career phases, which is I went to P&G to go learn marketing from the best. And what I learned at P&G was two things. They do two things incredibly well. One is they're incredibly data-driven. This is in the earlier stages of the digital transformation when I was working at P&G, but they're incredibly curious about everything, and they dive into the data, they synthesize trends, and that feeds back their decision-making and their insights. And, I found that quite scientific and surprising, because some people think of marketing as fluffy advertising. It's so much more than that. And I learned that at P&G. And the second thing they do really well is they're incredibly consumer focused. So every conversation, decision, meeting starts and ends with the consumer, what's best for them, and thinking through their shoes on, would this product delight them? Would it improve their life? And I gained that knowledge, but I missed healthcare. So then I went back into a digital health startup at this point called Neurometrics, and was excited to start to apply my big company acquired skills in a startup environment where there is no guidebook, right? And It was a complete white piece of paper. We built a business unit from scratch. It was consumer health. It was a class 2 medical device for chronic pain. That was a wild ride. We launched it at the Consumer Electronics Show. It was controlled by an iPhone app. And we sold it in all the major retailers in the US. It was sold online. It was sold in doctors' offices. And it was drug-free for chronic pain. And at the time, this was during the opioid epidemic. So it was quite a game-changing technology that improved a lot of people's life who were suffering from chronic pain. And maybe one of the most challenging things I've done in my career is working at a startup. And I learned a ton. And then I went to Abbott, where I started to pivot from going deep in marketing to transformation roles. And at Abbott, I was hired to build out consumer marketing. I ended up building out digital marketing, bringing in fundamentals like patient journey work, brand positioning, looking at, all of our digital data to make decisions. And then I went to Sanofi. So I boomeranged back to Boston. I'd been moving around a lot, the US, for all of these moves. And Sanofi, I was there almost 6 years, actually, before I joined Teva. And all of those roles were transformation oriented. So leading omni-channel digital marketing excellence across the biotech business unit called Specialty Care and the consumer health business unit when I was based in Paris. And each of those situations quite different, but all in the service of empowering people to take control of their health and their future, which is my personal purpose. And that led me to Teva, where this role has been quite new and exciting. We've got a great CEO. We've got a new strategy overall for the company. And my role here really is focused on everything in the commercial space and driving digital transformation. That includes AI, customer experience. That includes all of our channel management, commercial transformation topics, capability building. And we also have an in-house agency. So it's quite a diverse set of responsibilities, but everything is in service, again, of a common purpose, which is to commercially and digitally equip our organization and our people for the future.
Wow, that is amazing. What a diverse background you have, from OTC to pharma, medical device, FMCG. That is just amazing. And that tells us a lot about the recipe to becoming such a top leader in the pharmaceutical digital space. And with this diverse experience that you have across these industries, how has that shaped your approach to digital strategy in pharmaceuticals?
It's a great question. I would say, again, my career path is untraditional. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone. It worked for me. I've seen other incredibly successful people take completely different career paths. I think one thing to note is there is no career path for everyone anymore, right? It's with this digital age, with AI, everyone can choose their own path, and
Yes.
it might look, quite windy. But for me, my desire has always been to learn and grow and have an impact. And so that led me to curate this career of diverse experiences. It might be similar to a consultant in some ways, although I was actually on client side. But how I approach each unique role and opportunity is I start with a broad understanding of that company. It's not a lift and shift one solution from company to the next. Right. It's all about understanding their unique needs, culture, customers, history, unique differentiation of the company, what makes it great. But I also couple that understanding with looking at new external trends that are coming, things like Gen AI and what you described in your 2035 vision. And I then blend it with the diverse set of experiences and best practices that I've seen work universally across all of my company experiences. It's always rooted in best practice, but then designed for that unique company's situation or initiative that I'm driving.
Right. And what do you think are the key challenges in driving digital transformation in a large life sciences organization or in the life sciences industry in general?
I think any transformation leader or change management leader will resonate with this point. It's the short versus long-term tension. And this could be digital, this could be sustainability, this could be AI. If you're within especially publicly traded companies, there's always that trade-off. We have to hit the numbers, the P&L, quarter on quarter, month on month. But in order to invest for the long-term growth of the company to future-proof, we have to get comfortable with longer-term investments where you're not going to have a P&L KPI in the first month or even the first year. It usually takes 1, 2, 3 years to really drive through a change management initiative such as digital. The other thing is each company is set up differently from, specific to digital and IT foundation and infrastructure. And so as a transformation leader, but not the technical leader necessarily, I think there's always a strong partnership with IT, understanding the infrastructure, what we can and cannot do within our ecosystem, and ensuring that we're protecting from things like cyber risk, data protection, all of these things, doing everything in a responsible manner is key. And I think, but that also comes with, do we invest short or long term? Think about investing in future LLMs versus protecting the company from cyber risk. Again, that long-term, short-term, tension will permeate many different topics. And the last thing I'll highlight is people. Yes. So in any change management transformation initiative, if you have too many transformation or change topics at the same time, people can't absorb that. They're exhausted, right? Everything's coming at the commercial organization. Hit the numbers, invest for the future, learn these future skills, sustainability, digital, AI, there's a lot coming at us. And the key is you can only pick one or two, and you've got to partner with the top leaders to drive that top down and of course bottom up from a grassroots perspective. So you just can't have too many change initiatives at one time.
Right. And in a global role at your level, how do you approach integrating digital strategies across different global markets? Because there's a lot of diversity out there. There are different countries with different capabilities, different level of maturity, different set of resources. How do you make sure that there's harmony and there is consistency in terms of implementing digital strategies?
It's a great question. I feel like this is a question for the ages, right? The global to local question. You can talk about marketing, you can talk about digital, Gen AI. It is always a debate in any industry. There's not one perfect solution. So I'll highlight what I've seen work really well. Sure. And also the unique elements about Teva. Teva is quite entrepreneurial and has been built up over time with many acquisitions around the world. So we're leaders in markets that may not be the biggest market to other companies. And so we're quite unique in that way. And so one of the key things to approach global to local is you can't create global solutions or ideas or decisions by yourself. It's always done in co-creation, and it's done in co-creation with your largest, most impactful markets and brands. So they need to be co-creating with you, whatever the topic is, like digital transformation or AI, so that whatever you're designing is going to be usable and implementable and to drive their business. So that's, step number one. Got to bring them along the journey. Secondly is making sure you're selecting those right co-creation partners. So you should be thinking about what's the current size of impact on the business, what's the growth CAGR for that market or that brand, meaning how much are they going to contribute to the future. And you also have to consider digital maturity and the skills of the local market. To your point, where are we starting from? Where's the level? And then after you kind of work through those elements, then you need to think you've got to leave room for local customization always. I like to say it's in the 80-20 rule. Design something that will work for about 80% of your top markets and brands, leaving 20% of customization for the local markets or the brands so that they can really fine-tune their solution to work best for their customers.
And how has digital technology changed the way pharmaceutical companies engage with consumers and patients, given that the technology has evolved quite a lot in the last few decades? How do you see that change in real life?
Well, I think firstly, our approach to digital transformation is it always starts with people in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never chasing the next shiny tool and let's use that, or that looks cool, or let's try every LLM and experiment too much without scaling. So for us, it always starts, it's rooted in a people or business problem or opportunity. And that's rule number one. I think the other thing that's happened over the last, let's say, decade, 15 years, is the rise of consumerism. Let me ask you, Kaushik, would you consider yourself a patient? Would you consider yourself a pharmaceutical executive? Would you consider yourself a consumer?
That's a really tough one, because you are everything. You are all of it in certain ways. So I'm also a patient. I'm also a pharmaceutical executive. I work in the life science industry, and I think it's hard to distinguish and put yourself in that role or in that specific role.
Absolutely. It wasn't a trick question.
Yeah, it is.
But, that's the key, right? We need to actually recognize the fact that HCPs, patients, pharmacists, everyone we engage with, and ourselves, we're all consumers, and we're engaging with other industries who have risen the bar for what a customer experience looks like. It's seamless, it's frictionless, it's right place, right time, day or night, wherever you want to go to order something or learn something. And we need to in pharma, start raising our capabilities to meet that challenge. And the good news is that with some of these newer technologies like Gen AI, for example, we're able to do two things. One is cost-effective content creation for hyper-personalized journeys. In the past, we may not have the biggest budgets to create perfectly fine-tuned content adaptations for every type of persona that we're targeting. And now we're able to democratize that a bit because of technologies like Gen AI. The second part is insight generation. I think everyone is just, overwhelmed with the amount of data that we have, different silos of data. How do we make sense of it? How do we generate insights to make decisions? Gen AI can help simplify that process. So those are the two things that, we're certainly looking at to create what I'd call a real omni-channel experience, because I don't think we're doing that yet in healthcare. We're not quite there, but, technology will help us. Just another point on the rise of consumerism, it's not just about, customer satisfaction. So for example, we know that across any industry, customer-centric companies see a 20 to 30% uplift in customer satisfaction. They also see up to a 50% uplift in revenue. So it's good for the customer and it's good for the business.
And I think you touched upon two very important aspects, and one is data and second is content. And I think everywhere the struggle is to democratize data, insights, and also content for all the markets, and in an efficient way, in a user-friendly manner. So I think that's where the industry is heading, and trying to democratize, so that for content you don't have to run to the local agency for getting adaptations done, getting localizations done. You can just do it yourself, or maybe there are some ways in which you can turn it more efficiently.
Exactly. Actually, our in-house agency that we have at Teva, we are experimenting with Gen AI tools, and we're already seeing benefits in increased value creation, capacity creation for how fast we can execute projects related to content creation and adaptation.
Can you share any examples of innovative digital initiatives that you may have seen or have implemented to enhance customer relationships or engagement? Something that you really found futuristic or cutting edge?
Sure. And, sometimes cutting edge is just solving the business problems of today.
Yes.
So I'll highlight an example that is incredibly practical. And I've got a brilliant data science team in my organization and an in-house agency. And I'd like to highlight a collaboration that came out with the two teams, and specifically to tackle a business and customer problem. It wasn't let's experiment, but in this case, a lot of our pharmacists are humans, and sometimes they forget to order their medication. So then they're out of stock. And then
Yes.
hence the patient doesn't get the medication. So simple business problem that we needed to solve. Our data science team created an AI model that would predict when pharmacists would go out of stock of certain medications. And then we partnered up with our in-house agency to create the campaign to then deliver that information to the pharmacist, right place, right time, with a seamless way to order that medication
Right.
in order for the patients and the pharmacists to have the medication on time. And what the results were is that we saw an uptick in revenue on those combination, the products that we executed this for. And of course, the customer experience improves for both the pharmacist and the patient. So, I think this is just a great example of let's focus on the most impactful business problems and people problems we have, and then try to design Gen AI or digital solutions to solve those.
Right. And there's a lot of debate going on around insourcing strategy versus outsourcing, and of course there are pros and cons. But what's your take on that?
Well, firstly, you need to get your own house in order. So what I
Yes.
mean by that is looking top down or with whatever scope that you can control. What are the biggest people and business problems that you'd like technology to help you solve? And
Hmm.
then you need to prioritize those based on feasibility and business impact. And scalability is a portion of that, right? So you want to
Yes.
choose cases and examples that can have both impact and broad scale. And then you need to know where your data is related
Hmm.
to those cases. So is it in one place? Do you have a data warehouse or lakehouse? Do you know what your data sources are? Simple stuff, it seems, but it's critical before you move forward with anything more advanced. And then you need to take a look at, where do I want to build competitive advantage? Where do I have a
Yes.
right to build competitive advantage internally? And in those situations, you might want to build it in-house. So, you may want to build a custom LLM or, data science team in-house because you think that can be a source of competitive advantage. For areas that maybe aren't falling into that space, you'd want to consider maybe buying something off the shelf. This would be like
Hmm.
a enterprise LLM, like a Microsoft Copilot. So that would be, everyone in the company has access. It weaves into their day-to-day to automate tasks, to augment tasks. A little bit less customization, but that's a buy example, right? So the
Right.
first was build, this is buy, and then borrow would be the partnerships. So
Yes.
partnering with consultancies or agencies that have deep expertise that they could lend you so you can upskill and learn at the same time in your organization. And that allows for a bit more customization many times than just buying something off the shelf. So yeah, there's three different options, but I think you need to make that decision before you start engaging externally with external partners.
Absolutely. I think you've articulated that idea very well and very well summarized. Because, and taking a simple analogy, if you're flying from London to Los Angeles, and there are several options, and if you know that you're going to fly frequently, you can either rent a charter plane or buy a plane, or you can take a business class ticket to Los Angeles. So I think it's about making the right choice to figure out what's most efficient and what's most convenient, and what works best in view of the long-term ambitions and aspirations.
Absolutely. It's a great example. It's the pros and cons. You have to weigh that and make sure you just do that strategy work internally before you go outside to others, to invite others to the discussion.
Right. And coming to data-driven decision making, how are you leveraging data analytics to drive commercial strategies in your current role?
Well, it's a key foundation of anything related to digital transformation. I talk a lot about people and business problems and opportunities first. Well, second is the data foundation before we move
Yes.
into anything more advanced. And like many companies, we're still trying to get our data foundation completely set. We know what we need to do, but it's quite challenging when you think about a company that has acquired lots of other companies over the years. But the good news is we have a plan in place that we're moving forward to build those solid data warehouses and lake houses across the business. In any case, you've got to have the data in one place, whether it's something simple or large and enterprise wide. And then you need to understand, what are the queries that you're looking for that you want to layer on top of the data,
Hmm.
the visualization, the asking the right questions to start gathering insights, and then feeding that back into decision making. Now, I'll give you just a very simple example,
Hmm.
right? So we have an in-house agency. We're running, campaigns all the time. And so we have dashboards, quite simply that we're pulling in all the data from the various sources, we're looking at it, we're generating insights and a test, learn, iterate approach back into those omni-channel campaigns. So
Right.
that's a simpler example, but then enterprise-wide, I think takes a bit longer, but that's certainly the direction that we're taking.
Right. I think that makes perfect sense. And drawing from your experience, how do you approach marketing excellence in the pharmaceutical industry? I think you've answered that question to a certain extent, but would be good to sort of dive in a little deeper to understand your views.
Of course. I think I'm so thankful for my marketing background because it really fuels my approach to digital transformation and AI transformation. I think that's one of the lessons I'll share later on is you've got to have a broader business acumen because digital and AI without understanding that is just chasing shiny objects. And so for me, it always starts with the business and marketing first. So when we engage with our customers internally, our marketers, our GMs, we're always trying to understand what's the business objective, what are we trying to solve for here? Then do we need to understand the customer better? What are the KPIs that we're going after? And that needs to start first by the brand having done the upfront work on their strategic choices for the brand, right? If we're ever talking about digital, we need to have all that upfront marketing excellence work done. So, what are your growth opportunities? What customer segments are you going after? What's their customer journey, their patient journey, their HCP journey? Where are their biggest pain points? And then we can start thinking about layering on and creating those engagement plans. So marketing excellence is for me the overall umbrella for things like digital and AI, especially in the commercial space. But the strategic brand decisions need to happen before we ever start talking about digital.
Right. And looking at various approaches, tools, and resources that we've got at hand, how do you balance between the traditional approaches versus the new age solutions or digital innovations?
It's a great question. And I don't see traditional going away, right? That's the beauty of omni-channel. Omni-channel doesn't mean digital. It means omni-channel, both traditional or face-to-face channels, congresses, webinars, at-home learning, WhatsApp, email. It encompasses the whole journey because as a person, as consumers, as we are, as our patients and our HCPs are, we're engaging in channels all the time, face-to-face and digital and TV. And that's how we need to be thinking about omni-channel. And it's not one versus the other. It's actually how do they holistically work together in the service of the day and the life of the consumer that you're trying to reach. And I think it shouldn't, for us, we take a digital and AI first, but not only approach to thinking about engaging with our customers.
Exactly. And I think one of the toughest challenges in bringing all these channels together and providing perfectly harmonious omni-channel experiences to make sure that all these channels are integrated and they are talking to each other and not operating in silos. For instance, if an email goes out from a brand to a particular HCP and they are meeting with the reps the next day, and are they synced? Or if the MSL is speaking to the HCP and somebody from the headquarters is coming and visiting the same HCP, are these channels all synced? And how do we make sure this happens in a real life setting?
Well, and I think those are some of the challenges that we've had in pharma with creating what I'd call a true omni-channel system. And a lot of it goes back to data sharing and ecosystem and platforms being able to share information, being able to use AI to overcome maybe some of the barriers that we've had in the past. Of course, we're always looking at data protection and making sure that we're being transparent with how we're using customer data. So that will continue to be a focus. We need to be responsible in how we're using digital and AI. But I do think with some of the newer technologies, we're able to leapfrog maybe where we've been behind in the past. When you look externally across all industries, in fact, pharma is quite behind many other industries in digital adoption. Let's say we're about 50% versus other industries, which are closer to 90%, even though HCPs primarily are digital natives. I believe 70% of HCPs are now digital natives. The good news is that since 2019, pharma as an industry has moved the fastest to accelerate covering that gap to digital adoption. So we are making strides, but there's still a lot more work to do.
Right. And what emerging digital trends do you think will have the biggest impact on the pharmaceutical industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, there's so much to unpack there, Kaushik, and I love staying up with what's happening externally and what different organizations are experimenting with. In fact, I just got back from Frontiers Health last week in Berlin, and there was a lot of exciting news from both big companies and startups and agencies. And I'll limit it to three here. Firstly, I think what we'll see is, with the explosion of Gen AI specifically, we're going to see more of a democracy of being able to achieve omni-channel experiences for our customers in healthcare. So as I mentioned earlier, the rise of consumerism has risen the bar for what HCPs and patients want from us as a healthcare industry. And with Gen AI, we're able to hopefully achieve that in the near future. True seamless omni-channel experiences that are hyper-personalized, right place, right time, and they're driven by insights that are generated in a quick, fast, accelerated way to drive those journeys and experiences from an internal company perspective. So that's the first one. I think, the second is we've seen a lot of, especially in the device space, companies using AR and VR. And what I'd like to highlight here is you're able to use those experiences to immerse, let's say, surgeons as they're learning to use a new device in surgery in a safe, responsible way to give feedback on their technique. And I think that's brilliant. I also think on the side of the HCP or the caregiver, to immerse yourself in an AR or VR experience to really truly understand what your patient or your loved one is going through in that therapeutic area that they're suffering from. What is it really like to have a migraine? How debilitating is it? We don't know if we don't have migraines. But with AR and VR experiences, you're able to really understand that consumer, that customer, that patient. And, the last one I'd say is really the blend and integration of drug, device, and technology. So I saw a ton of that last week at the conference. I think that is a very exciting space. How do we use devices to augment and more smartly use our medications, in a hyper-personalized way, personalized dosage, for example, and then tracking on a wearable device, the impact on that person's health, and that in this evergreen loop of learning from the insights and then changing dosage or other elements of the treatment regimen for the patient. So those three, I think, are super exciting. I also think those are going to progress quite a bit in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. How are you treading the line when it comes to the incredible explosion of innovation that has come in through Gen AI? Because I think it provides you incredible opportunities, but at the same time, it's a line that you want to tread very carefully and just to make sure there are no downstream complications.
Yes. So any new technology revolution comes with risks, and we're still at the very early stages. So it's critical that we assess risk, but also encourage our organizations to experiment and to learn. Because if we put fear in everyone, no one's going to learn the future skills which we need to survive and thrive. So in this case, what we've done is partnered with legal and IT across the organization. And we also look external to organizations like the World Federation of Advertising, who works across all industries and sets guidelines for responsible AI usage. And we look at what we need to do internally at Teva, and we've built out guidance, and we're now, rolling out capability programs and awareness sessions so that we're informing our people on what the risks are, how to mitigate the risks, but also encouraging them to experiment and to start using it, because that is the way of the future.
Right. Alyssa, how would you describe your leadership style, particularly when leading teams in a highly innovative and fast-paced digital tech environment?
Well, it's definitely been honed over time. I think, as you know, right, you go working for different leaders, observing different leaders, working for different companies, countries, geographies. I've tried to cultivate a style, one that's super purpose and values driven. So I talk a lot about that, my team and with my organization and externally, because it's so critical. The higher up you go, the decisions get more difficult. And if you have that grounding and purpose and values, it's really helpful to help navigate those difficult decisions. And for me, that's all about serving, connecting, and empowering people to take control of their health and their future. So unpacking that a little bit, very much a people first leader, whether that's our employees, my team, customer, consumer, my stakeholders. I'm an extrovert. I'm curious about people. I like to learn about people and their experiences. I'd say I'm highly collaborative. And I encourage diversity of thought and new ideas. So that is a core value. I always have built really thought diverse teams, and
Right.
that enriches the outcomes and decisions that we make. I also set a very high bar. So, I'm a former athlete, also
Yeah.
have worked in some top companies. So for me, we should all be challenging ourselves and our teams to strive to excel. What's next? What's better? How can we improve? And that is the foundation for a high performing team. And then the last part is just encouraging that, culture of experimentation and evergreen learning, and making sure that we're then connecting it back to our business and our people and the impact that we can have.
Right. And as a woman leader in tech, what unique challenges or opportunities you've encountered, and what advice would you give to women aspiring to leadership roles in these industries?
Well, firstly, Kaushik, and in the near future, I hope that we can just use the word leader to describe women
Yeah,
leaders, right? And
sure.
I know that others have said that, but I also want to comment that I really had the pleasure to work for, collaborate with, and lead people of all genders and teams that are high performing. So for me, the key to success with diversity is embracing it from all angles. So that's
Yes.
gender, ethnicity, geography, past experiences in education, generation, personality type, and family situations. There's so many layers to people. And while I say that, there's certainly been challenges along the path over the last 20 years in the industry. I do see the challenges as opportunities. And there are less women at the top. So I think
Yes.
that's the reality, right? And you'll look at any external statistics that we're just not keeping up with the progress at the higher levels, especially. You see a huge drop off, around, let's say, mid-career. And we need to continue to drive education for how we can overcome that. But a lot of it stems from human behavior, and
Right.
people tend to go with what they're comfortable with, right? They
Yes.
seek comfort in others that may be more similar to them. And I'll give one example of something I've seen work really well in this space. And
Sure.
when I was at P&G, I was on the Gillette women's lead team, and we launched a reverse mentoring program. And this was the highest level male executives partnered up with high potential female talents. And they were incredibly supportive and open-minded. And it was more about just educating them on what we're going through, what our experiences are, because sometimes you're just not aware. And I think that's where we start, is being open-minded, asking questions, and then making sure that we're implementing that and thinking about that and how we lead our teams. So, I think some of the advice I'd give to women who are aspiring to other leadership positions is, in the early stages of your career, build those diverse experiences, get feedback from all genders, all types of diverse people, coaches, managers, and build your gut instinct and build your intuition, and then start trusting that. Once you get enough of those experiences, trust your instinct, trust your gut intuition, speak up in that meeting, be bold, make those decisions, and don't second guess yourself. And I think if you can build that muscle to trust your gut
Yes.
and your intuition, that really helps women advance and into higher levels.
That's a wonderful piece of advice. What skills do you think are essential for future leaders in the pharmaceutical digital strategy space?
Well, I think there's many skills required. I think specific to digital, what I'd say is across any industry, it's soft skills. Soft skills are key for the future. Things are moving so fast. Jobs won't be necessarily obsolete. They will evolve, and they will involve needing to know how to partner with technology like Gen AI or AI to do your job better, faster, and augment that work. So 2 key skills: evergreen learning, be curious, continue to learn, and agility. Things are going to change, and you need to be ready
Yes.
for it. And early adopters of technology are going to be, on the forefront of that. I'd say in the space as well, we have to upskill on the hard skills too. So if we look at one statistic across all industries, I think 87% of leaders are upskilling or planning to upskill their marketers on Gen AI. So those are the hard skills that we also need to start upskilling on. And then more broadly, anyone working in digital or AI, we need to have a broader business acumen to understand our customer, the problems we're solving, and how we can have an impact with those new technologies. We need to have curiosity about our people, our consumer, our business. And we need to continue to fine tune our stakeholder management skills and relationship building skills to understand those insights that are needed to understand the business.
Right. What has been the most challenging aspect of your role as the global head of digital and commercial?
Well, every role has its challenges, right? And for me, like I said at the very beginning, I always start by learning and understanding each company's situation and what works and how it's unique and differentiated from what I have learned in the past. What I love, let me start with something that I love about this
Sure.
company. I love that the company Teva is incredibly entrepreneurial. As I mentioned,
Yes.
so many acquisitions, and we've empowered people to really experiment and with new technologies or ideas across all geographies, which is super exciting. And they're quite resilient as well. Teva's been through a lot of changes in direction of the company, and we're scrappy, we're resilient, and I appreciate that, especially coming from a startup midway through my career. I think the most challenging aspect for any publicly traded company and driving for teams like myself, driving transformation and change is balancing the short and long-term needs of the business. And we do that on my team by connecting where we can to short-term impact, revenue, cost reduction. We can do that in some parts of the team, but to really build capabilities for the future, we have to convince our leaders to invest in areas that will build those future capabilities and skills so that we are, continue to stay competitive in the industry. So it's back to that long and short-term tension that
Yes.
We all end up managing.
Right. I really like that long and short term tension concept or theory that you just talked about. Can you share a success story or initiative that you're particularly proud of throughout your career?
Well, I actually would go back and highlight. There's been so many different exciting things to share. I'll share the example from the startup because
Sure.
for me, it was quite a while ago, but it was the first time I'd worked in a small company where there was no guardrails, no playbook to build it from scratch. You either sink or swim in a startup environment. And I'm incredibly proud of building that business unit from scratch. So the brand was built from scratch, bringing on the agencies to build the brand, working with R&D to fine tune the brand to make it more consumer centric, hiring the team, hiring the marketers, sales team, customer care team, building out our customer strategy, our brand strategy, our engagement plan that was multifaceted across, online, in store, in doctor's office. We had incredible press as well. When we launched the product at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, we actually were a Best of CES finalist, and it had a tremendous impact on patients. So I'd say having proved that I can do it without the big company support was something I'm super proud of, and super proud of the team and both internally and externally that brought that product to life.
Right. And what personal philosophies or guiding principles have driven your approach to leadership and innovation in the healthcare sector or pharmaceutical sector?
Well, I think for me, I blend my personal leadership values with what I'm communicating in an industry. So, certainly purpose led. For me, it's all about serving, connecting, and empowering people to take control of their health and their future. And there's those underlying values of being people first, evergreen learning, having that growth mindset, and setting a high bar, open-mindedness and diversity of thought. And, one thing I always say when asked, what's your biggest failure? I don't believe in a failure. I believe in learning.
Exactly.
And the key thing is that you learn quickly and you iterate quickly and set a different course. And of course, in addition to the purpose-led elements and the values, it's just my personal passion for health and wellness and fitness. That's what sparked my interest into the industry. Well, I wanted to be a doctor and then pivoted to business, which is, where I need to be with my skill sets. But, I'm constantly learning what's the latest wellness trend or what's the latest device or treatment or things to try out to further health and wellness and share that with, people in my network.
Right. And what's your take on risk-taking ability or the role of risk-taking in driving innovation? And can you share a time when you took a bold decision that paid off or didn't, and how it influenced your career?
So I think, risk taking is a critical element in the recipe for success of driving innovation in any industry. The key is to take calculated, educated risks, and that can come from having built some great intuition on seeing best practice, but also based on data and insights that you're getting from data. So one, we have to do it to move the world forward. I think secondly, the example that I would give that was maybe the boldest is also the startup example. I came to this business. We're building a consumer health, digital health business unit from scratch. We had prepared the brand and the product to launch at the Consumer Electronics Show. It happens once a year in Vegas. So you either launch there or you have to wait a whole nother year. So made the bold decision, even though we knew the product wasn't ready to actually ship. We made the bold decision to promote it. At least the demos or the models at the show. We garnered a ton of press. We were actually Best of CES finalists. But then the challenge was we weren't ready to ship, and we weren't ready to ship for actually 6 months. And that was a bold decision. It paid off because I knew that, and I'm a creative solution person. So we came up with solutions to continue to work with driving education in the news and the press about the product, about these benefits to relieving chronic pain without medication in a consumer-oriented way, while we developed a crowdfunding campaign to actually build up excitement with early adopters. And they were able to reserve their device to be shipped first once they were ready to ship. So it was a big, bold decision. It could maybe have not paid off, but it did because we came up with some creative solutions to make it a success.
Wow, that is such a good example. There's always a conflict between these two approaches of waiting for that perfect moment to do things perfectly, or just getting started in an imperfect way and then slowly getting there. I really like this example of how you took the decision of going straight away into the event and launching the product or introducing it.
Yes, it was a wild ride.
And what advice would you give to professionals looking to transition into or advance in digital roles within the pharmaceutical industry?
I think firstly, it's all about the soft skills. So I think those are critical to survive and thrive in the future for anyone, any professional, any industry. There's two I'd like to highlight: evergreen learning and agility. I think the other thing is learning from others. So people who are interested in getting into digital or getting into different types of professions, reach out to people who have interesting jobs that you'd like to learn from, and find out what their day-to-day looks like and what they think the strengths needed or required for that role are, and have that help you refine kind of what you're looking for. And again, I think you can't think of digital alone in a silo. It is in service of a broader business and customer strategy. So you have to broaden your mindset and understanding all the other functions that you're going to be operating with, what business needs may there be, and really having that deep curiosity on the consumer or the patient. So I think those are all just critical success factors to think about, a digital career in pharma.
And that brings us to the end of our today's episode, Alyssa. This has been such a fascinating conversation. I think we have only just scratched the surface of how digital transformation and AI are reshaping the pharmaceutical landscape, but you've really given us a glimpse into what the future could look like and how close we are to making that future a reality. And your insights into how data, digital tools, and innovative strategies are being integrated to drive better outcomes for both healthcare professionals and patients have been incredibly valuable. And it's clear that the work you're doing at Teva is not only driving the industry forward, but also setting the stage for a much more connected, data-driven, and patient-centered future. Thank you so much for taking time to join us on Drug Diaries today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. And I'm sure our audience will walk away with a lot of valuable takeaways. And I'm really excited to see how you continue to lead the transformation in the years to come.
Thank you, Kaushik, for the invitation. I enjoyed the discussion, and let's strive for that 2035 future that you named at the beginning.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.